Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're here with our candidate spotlights. My name is Kendra Johnson. I use she and her pronouns, and I have the distinct honor and privilege of being the executive director of Equality ENC. Today, I have a very special guest for our candidate spotlights, my friend and co-conspirator in this movement for equality in the state of North Carolina, Jasmine Beach-Ferrara. Jasmine, I want you to just jump in, tell everybody your pronouns. Tell us why a little bit about yourself and why you feel called to run for the seat that is currently occupied by a person who we shall not name. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Jasmine Beach-Ferrara. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And let me begin just by saying a huge thank you, Kendra, to you and to the entire team at Equality North Carolina for the really visionary leadership that you're bringing to this moment, including this election cycle, but y'all's work goes far beyond that. And just a little bit about my background. I grew up in Chapel Hill in the 80s and 90s. And had the experience of coming out during the end of my high school years, kind of against that backdrop. Equality NC was already an organization on the ground at that point, and was a very bright light in a landscape that was otherwise a pretty tough one for LGBTQ folks in our state. But a lot of the seeds were planted then for what I've ended up doing with my life, which has included following a call into ministry. I'm an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ, and helping to launch the Campaign for Southern Equality back in 2011 with my wife, Megan, and a team of folks. We are so honored to have a longstanding partnership with Equality NC as we push for LGBTQ equality here in North Carolina, and our work takes us all across the South. And it is a lot of the lessons learned in that space and the lessons I learned growing up that really motivated me to get involved in the political space initially. And for many years, that was as a campaign volunteer on everything from city council races to presidential races. And in 2016, there was an open seat on county commission here in Buncombe County. And I, along with my wife, Meg, we made the decision that I was going to run for that. And that really put in motion the story that I'm in the midst of now, running for Congress here in the NC 11 district. For me, the big motivator on running for office is about how we create tables where all of our communities are represented at every level of government. We know that every level of policy making and every level of sort of how government functions is stronger, better, more impactful when there is representation from communities of color, from rural folks, from LGBTQ folks, from folks with different class backgrounds. And for far too long, that hasn't been the case in our representation in North Carolina. And I'm honored to be part of a very big team of folks who are working hard to change that at every level.
Thanks so much for that. I know that there are many issues like that different regions of the state face, and there's some that are in common now because of we're in this not really post-pandemic, we're kind of tail end of the pandemic, I hope, period. What are the issues that you see in Western North Carolina, and how do you plan to address those if you're elected to office? So what are your top issues for getting hard to work on?
Absolutely. Well, I've been running for the past 18 months in this congressional race, and a major part of that has been going out there and knocking doors in every county, every corner of the district, and doing a lot of listening to folks from all walks of life, from across the political spectrum. And I'd really say that there's two main categories of things that folks talk about when you ask the questions: what matters to you, what keeps you up at night, and what do you need and want from your representatives in Congress. Some of those issues are pretty unique to Western North Carolina. It's things like broadband access. There are a lot of folks across our district who don't have that basic utility of broadband access, and that interferes with everything from their ability to access telehealth appointments, to kids' ability to do homework at night, to being able to fully participate in the 21st century economy. Another issue that comes up a bunch is how the opioid crisis has impacted and devastated so many folks in our community, and also a lot of stories of hope as people are getting access to the treatment that they need and deserve. But that's an issue that, again, has impacted people from every single walk of life and that you hear about a lot. We've also been significantly impacted up here by the contraction of rural healthcare services. That means everything from hospital units shuttering their doors to mental health clinics closing, stories of folks having to go through harrowing middle of the night ambulance drives across state line to get the cardiac care they need or deliver a baby and get the care that they need. So there are some issues that play out in a really particular way up here in Western North Carolina. And we have not had someone in Congress for a very long time who has been showing up every day to fight for the kind of policy solutions that can be difference makers on this. And that really leads into the other thing that I hear again and again and again, which is that people are sick and tired of the politics of extremism, the politics of division that we have been getting for many years. It came first from Mark Meadows, who represented this district for many terms. He vacated that seat and left it open, so we had no representation. Our current representative is Madison Cawthorn, who has used this congressional seat both to build his political brand, but also to try to spread a very dangerous form of extremism. And my opponent, Chuck Edwards, is very much part of that same political legacy and tradition. And what I hear from folks is that they are sick and tired of that, everything from the way that it distracts from the policy priorities of this region and actual representation to what it means in terms of people's lives, and the way that a major part of the agenda that my opponent and others share is about forcing government intrusion into the most private parts of our lives, from being able to access abortion services to being able to choose and have the freedom to marry the person you love.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I think we're just in a moment of this like really divisive rhetoric and no solutions. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some folks in office that are actually going to work on the task at hand. Folks want education, good access to broadband. They want a good economy, and they want access to healthcare, but we keep baiting each other instead of doing the work. So looking forward to that. And this question, I'm going to ask it, but I already know some of it is, you know, you talked a little bit about LGBTQ representation and actually just broader representation of people who are typically underrepresented in government. You know, when we look at LGBTQ issues, how are you going to be a champion? You're a member of the community. That doesn't always equal champion. I know you are a champion, but what are the issues that you see on the federal landscape, and how will you continue to work in this area if elected?
Well, just as a starting point, I think something that our community has experienced and understands so well and brings into the room whenever we walk into a room is an understanding of how policy can be a tool that helps lift people up and create equal opportunity for everyone, but it can also be weaponized as a tool that's used to demean, degrade, and exclude people. And we are living through a time when the political attacks on LGBTQ folks, particularly transgender youth, have reached an all-time high. And at the same time, we're living through a time where there's unprecedented support for LGBTQ people. And that's certainly something that I hear loudly and clearly as I campaign across the district. Is the reality is so many people have come out and continue to come out, that so many families across North Carolina understand this as a personal issue. And particularly when we're talking about kids, they get in a very heartfelt and very visceral way that what a kid needs more than anything is to know they are loved, they are supported, and they'll never be alone. And I think as we look at some of the priorities for our community at the federal legislative level, part of it is about ensuring that we have the votes to beat back any attempts to restrict LGBTQ rights or access at the federal level, particularly efforts that there's begun being conversation about that would impose federal bans that look like some of the state level bans we've seen on things like access to gender affirming healthcare for youth, for instance, or access to being able to participate in sports. So part of it is playing defense in that way, but there also are so many opportunities for us to continue expanding support and rights and access for the LGBTQ community. Legislatively, that includes things like passing the Respect for Marriage Act, which is scheduled to come up for a vote on the other side of the election and has a pathway to passage with bipartisan support. It means finally passing the Equality Act. It means looking through every piece of legislation, particularly in the areas of employment, education, and healthcare, through a lens that includes what does this mean for LGBTQ folks, and are there particular issues we need to think about to address disparities that we know exist for LGBTQ folks, whether it's accessing mental health treatment and services, for instance, or being guaranteed an inclusive educational environment so that youth have an opportunity to learn. So, for me, that process starts with listening and always trying to make sure that I'm listening to a wide range of voices from within our community. Our community is not univocal on a lot of issues, and that's part of the beauty of the LGBTQ community. And it's about really trying to listen and continue to learn and think about how we can best express the value and the principle that LGBTQ people are fully equal and should be fully equal in every part of life through federal law and policy.
Thanks so much for your work. And I just can speak personally. We've had the best partnership in our work for the non-discrimination ordinances across the state. We're at 21 or 22. I'm starting to lose count, which is a really great thing, place to be, given that we started from zero. I want to pivot a little bit and just hear about how your campaign is going. I know as part of our work with your campaign, we have a fundraiser coming up, but what do you need? What do you need from folks to get you across the finish line with success?
Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for the endorsement and all the forms of support that Equality North Carolina is bringing, not just into my race, but into working to elect folks across the state. And yeah, we are in the final push here. I'll tell you, I'm totally fired up by the level of momentum that we're seeing across the district. That's showing up in the form of, packed turnout at events. We had more than 100 folks out knocking doors with us, including 11 other campaigns on a recent Saturday. I am an organizer by background, as I know you and so many on the ENC team are, and our team is made up of organizers. And so that is front and center in how we're approaching this final push, which is all about voter turnout. What we know here in NC 11 is that we have fair maps for the first time in more than a decade. And this is our very best shot at flipping this congressional seat in a long time. And we also know the votes are out there to do it. We have been targeting a group of voters who will essentially be the decision makers in this. They're folks who sometimes show up in midterms, but don't always. And for them, it comes down to whether they feel like there's enough on the line and whether they feel like their vote will make a difference. And so we've begun those conversations with these voters months and months ago as they make this decision about whether to turn out. And based on what we're hearing folks say, I don't usually show up, but I'm absolutely showing up this time. One of the issues that's coming up again and again and again is about abortion access. It is hard to overstate how angry people are, how motivated people are, and how much people understand the consequence of this election at the state and certainly at the federal levels. So we're seeing a lot of energy on the ground, and our job is to harness all of that into an incredibly well-organized voter turnout program. We're honored to be working closely with everyone from the Sherry Beasley campaign here in Western North Carolina to state House and state Senate candidates, all the way through local races through school board, in the largest, most coordinated get out of the vote program that our district has ever seen. And that's exactly what it's going to take between now and the close of polls, is everyone digging deep. And this is what our ask is we can't have anyone on the sidelines right now. And what we need specifically is folks signing up for volunteer shifts to be out knocking doors with us, to be on the phones with us, having these direct conversations with voters. There is nothing as effective, and there is no substitute for it. And we really need all hands on deck as we move forward. Western North Carolina has the votes to help Sherry Beasley win the Senate race. We have the votes to elect Lucy Inman and Sam Ervin to the state Supreme Court. And we certainly have the votes to flip this congressional seat and win key state and local races, but it all hinges on our ability to not treat this like a standard midterm election, and to treat this like what it is, which is an election of extraordinary consequence, where we have the opportunity to show what's possible here in Western North Carolina, who we really are, and what our values are. And along the way in this congressional race, we have the opportunity to break some barriers. Western North Carolina has never sent a woman to Congress. Never sent an out person to Congress, have also never sent a person of color to Congress. So we have a lot of work to keep doing, but there's some opportunities to break some barriers and change the story of what's possible here. Above all, for me, I grew up in an environment where LGBTQ kids heard a message again and again that someone like you can't do this. And that's a message that too many people in our community continue to hear, whether because of the color of the skin, where they were born, the language their family speaks, the list goes on and on. But we have to stop sending that message to kids in North Carolina and instead be sending a message that you can follow your dreams and there's a seat at the table waiting for you. And that we need everyone to be in this with us as we work to not just win elections, but send a powerful message that about the kind of North Carolina we're working to build together and about how committed we are to defeating the very real extremist political movement that's on the march here.
Awesome. So real quick, we have a fundraiser for you on October 12th, 6 p.m. O. Henry's.
That's right.
Turn up, you can donate. If you can't make it, then you can still donate. And you can sign up to Canvas or Phone Bank or to donate. Where can they do that, Jasmine?
Yeah, they can go to jasmineforcongress.com/volunteer, jasmineforcongress.com/donate. We would be honored and thrilled to have you join the team with us.
Awesome. So I want to thank you just from the bottom of my heart for you being here to tell us a little bit more about yourself. Best of luck on your campaign. We're going to be working to get you elected, but we're looking forward to seeing the great things that you do from here on out. Thanks so much for being here with us. And everybody who's tuning in, get engaged, get engaged. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. See you soon.